the summer of 1965, I was mowing lawns for a cousin of mine, and during the weeks I was working there, all of a sudden I couldn't stop from drinking and going to the bathroom. Not eventually, my mother then thought something is wrong and took me to the doctor, Dr. Rubenstein, and he took my blood sugar, gave me a blood test, came back, and I had a blood sugar of around 600. And so it was immediately observed that I should go to the hospital because it was apparent that I had become diabetic. And while diabetes, at least juvenile diabetes, is a genetic illness, and my father had it since I was then 19 years old, I thought I was more than a juvenile. But I did go to the hospital, and they stabilized me, and then started saying that I would need to inject insulin, and so they gave me a needle and a syringe and an orange to practice injecting myself with insulin. I have continued injecting myself with insulin every day, and sometimes multiple times a day, since May of 1965. But the other thing they gave me was what is called test tape. And test tape was used to check one's blood sugar level. After listening to the gentleman at the Republican debates on the size of their fist, I have some appreciation, because how one tested one's blood sugar was with test tape was to pee on the strip of tape and then compare the color with some indicator on the back. And for many, many years, I would carry my test tape around to check my blood sugar. While I was not able to return to mowing grass, since that was a physically challenging job, at that time, President Johnson had instituted the war on poverty, and I was able to qualify for what was called the Youth Opportunities Program. And that program provided me an opportunity to go work at Picatinny Arsenal, which was an Army arsenal located near my house, and I had the opportunity to work in what was called at that time the Automated Data Processing Division. And so I started in the summer of '65 messing around with automated equipment. In fact, one of the things I learned that summer was how to wire the control panel for an IBM 407. You can go on YouTube and look for IBM 407 and see what that's involved. But that sort of got me interested in computers, which I've had and continued for much of my career. I then returned to the university, obtained a degree in economics, was admitted to Miami of Ohio, and obtained a master's degree, and then in the summer of 1968, came to the University of Texas to pursue a PhD. I also, during that time, got married. Lenny and I had 2 children, and to each of them I owe a great deal of thanks for helping me continue to do well in terms of treating my diabetes. I would also at that time, starting in the summer or the fall of 1968, I obtained health coverage through the state of Texas. And so I would like to also thank the people at the Employee Retirement System who provided me with health coverage throughout up until 2010, when I then transferred, or 2011, when I then became Medicare eligible. So thank you, citizens of Texas, for providing me with health coverage. And I would hope that our legislature in the upcoming session would give serious thought to extending coverage to the millions of eligible people through the Affordable Care Act. Diabetes, especially in South Texas, is increasing at a significant rate. And I would hope that providing people with coverage would extend their life. So please at least give it some thought. When I began working for the state, that is, I went from the university a couple of blocks south of the university to work at the controller's office as part of the health coverage that was provided by the state. I selected the I selected Austin Regional Clinic as my primary care provider. And I was very fortunate that at ARC that both Norm Chenvin and Hans Hayden were my primary care physician. Not only did they provide me excellent health coverage, but they also put up with the suggestions that I made about how to improve health coverage, not only for Austin Regional Clinic, but also for the state of Texas. So Norm and Hans, thank you for treating me and not throwing me out of your office after you heard my first suggestion. I also, along with my family, I also owe a sincere thanks to Terry, Rita, and Jeanette. Each of them were there when I experienced a hypoglycemic incident. In each of these cases, it required emergency medical care, and as you can see, since I'm up here making this commentary, that I survived and am able to, again, thank them for their assistance with this. So without them, I wouldn't be here doing the video. I would also, so following my last hypoglycemic incident, Dr. Hayden suggested that I begin seeing an endocrinologist, a specialist in diabetes, and I came under coverage by Dr. Thomas Blevins, and one of the things that he did was to transfer me from the insulin that I had used for 40-some years to a long-acting insulin. And with that, using that insulin along with short-acting insulin, I have not experienced another hypoglycemic incident requiring emergency room delivery or for the last 10 years. Again, I would hope that at least I would instill in people that while diabetes can be an illness that has very significant implications, that with proper treatment and having professional care, one can survive it. And I would hope that others would take the time and they too could obtain the 50-year medallion from the Joslin Diabetic Center. So thank you, and I hope you find this conversation or commentary of some interest. Bye-bye.